Labs, and I am author of Datasploit, which is an open source intelligence framework, and I also run a DEF CON village, which talks about reconnaissance and open source intelligence again. I've been in the conference circuit for a while, and here to share some of my experience around open source intelligence. Directly jumping to the agenda of the talk, we're going to discuss, first we will discuss what is open source intelligence and why security teams should use it. Following that, we will discuss how you should do continuous discovery of assets and monitor them, and then use those OSINT assets for periodic attack simulation. How you can discover sensitive information. How should you monitor breached passwords of your account as well as your employees. And how can you use OSINT proactively, including social media, where you can check for reputation of your organization, etc. And then ultimately, we will discuss what are the countermeasures which you should think about. Before we start discussing that, a few terms. Whenever I say brute force, I basically means using a trial and error method for obtaining information, such as username, password, a bucket name, OTP code, or anything for that matter. Whenever I use black box, I mean that we are referring to a system where we have no information about the system. When we say white box, we believe that we have all the information about the system. So before we do any kind of engagement or exercise on organization, we have all the access about them. And then gray box, which is kind of a mix. So probably assume you have passwords or maybe some access control policies, but not all the information. Whenever I use the word patch, it basically means phishing security vulnerabilities and other bugs. It could be functional bugs as well. So what is open source intelligence? Basically, it is collecting information from internet, analyzing them, applying intelligence on top of it, and then gaining actionable intelligence out of it. So if you just want to have a representation of that, find raw information, apply intelligence on top of it, analyze it, correlate that information, and then you have something for which you can use for taking some actions. And why we should do OSINT? Because nowadays when you look, everyone has a smartphone, everyone loves uploading pictures on Facebook, especially your boarding passes when you are boarding a flight, which have a QR code, which can ultimately result in leaking information. Now this is one of my favorite tweets on Twitter, where a government person tweeted just to show off what kind of things he's up to. And the screen clearly shows the ID card which he's holding, using which a physical security person can actually clone an ID card. This is also showing some call lists over here. I don't know if I can zoom here. Yeah, I can. So there are some call lists. You can figure out that they are using a Windows box, and IE, Chrome, and Skype are already installed on the machine. You can figure out there are some predictable passwords for the Wi-Fi, and the camera placement if in case someone is interested in doing something nasty to this organization. And this is just an example, what kind of information we upload on internet without even realizing that information is going out. For example, if you have a smart DSLR, you take a pic and upload it on some social media. You don't realize that it actually appends your geolocation information with that. Unless the social media is stripping that information, anyone can figure out where you actually clicked that photo, okay? And now if it is a photo from your trips, it's all right. But if you are just clicking a selfie at your home, you are revealing your home address. And that is why OSINT is important. Now why security teams, defensive teams should do open source intelligence? Because hackers do, right? And because hackers can do this and use this information to attack you, as a security team, you should also do open source intelligence and be ahead of hackers in the game. Few more reasons, because people leak sensitive information on code aggregators like GitHub, Bitbucket. There are so many untracked assets which are running easy targets. Most of them are legacy boxes like a.abc.com, example.abc.com, and most common, backup.example.com. Also, when every organization is moving to cloud, we have seen a lot of cases where people spawn boxes with private IP addresses, but they don't realize there is a public IP attached to that box as well. And eventually, when you find out the list of assets, you realize you have so many IP addresses lying out in public, which are not even required, and they're running 3306 port open, inviting attackers to gain access to your database. But again, they don't have passwords, and you can get passwords a lot of time from GitHub, Bitbucket, and such code aggregators, which we just talked about. Also, with open source intelligence, attacks become very targeted. If I know you are more interested in football and cycling, the kind of dictionary list I will make for launching a brute force attack will have those keywords in them instead of running a 1 million passwords list for attacking you. Also, employees use breach passwords in corporate accounts. This is in line with the policy of using same password everywhere, and people love that. And that is something hackers always keep an eye on. Also, when you have full patch system, let's say you have all the latest patches installed on your machines, a credential leak can actually defeat all of them and still allow the attacker to get inside your network or your machines. There are a few case studies where people have found information about companies on internet, and then they have made a lot of money because bugs were really critical. They have found Slack tokens, API tokens of organizations. Tesla has a bunch of their AWS keys leaking out, which attackers used for logging into their AWS account, spawning EC2 instances, and doing some crypto mining. So things like that are pretty common nowadays, especially when everyone is moving to cloud environments. These kind of issues are coming in. And that's the reason security teams should really, really do open source intelligence in this cycle. Now the question is, how do you do that? First thing which you should do is have a continuous discovery process where you continuously discover your assets and monitor them, have a clear number of how many assets do you actually own. There should be periodic attack simulation using open source intelligence again. For example, if you have found 50 passwords related to your organization and you have 30 domains or subdomains, you should actually spray these credentials on your domains or subdomains so that you know if any of them is working or not. Because if that is working, it's a critical issue. You should also monitor breach passwords. You should have a periodic check on discovering sensitive information. Now, this could be an automated check, or you could have a person sitting in your team doing this every month or every week, but these kind of systems should always be in the place. Now, you should also be identifying security incidents using social media intelligence. We will get into that later on. So another question which comes is, what is an asset? Now, earlier, we have always been talking about assets having monetary values. They could be servers, your hard disk, routers, your organization buildings, etc., etc. Now, these are the kind of assets which have a direct financial value you can calculate. But how about your social media accounts? If you have an account which has a huge number of followers and something wrong goes there, do you count it as an asset? If your password is being leaked on your repository, do you count it as an asset? A lot of people don't. But think about it, if that is not an asset and that password can actually cause a lot of financial as well as reputational cost to your organization, it becomes an asset, right? So ideally, these things should also be considered when you are making your asset inventories. They don't have any monetary value, but they can cause a huge reputational and financial loss to the organization. So, picking up the first item from things which we should do, continuous discovery and monitoring of assets. These are a few of the assets, and of course not limited to these, but these are the kind of things people should be looking on. IP addresses, now they could be dynamic IP addresses, dynamic because in your data centers, and elastic IP addresses if you are using any cloud infrastructure. You should monitor your domains, subdomains, cloud storage objects, which includes your buckets, blobs, spaces, where you actually store your information. Lead credentials, API keys, social media accounts, third-party API keys, analytics tags, which we'll come to that later, and supply chain, especially if your company has acquired a company, or maybe you have a merger or you have a vendor which has access to your internal domains. They actually increase your attack surface area, and hence you should always do some kind of OSINT on that part as well. Coming to IP addresses, few of the sources, again not limited to, but common sources from where you can fetch the list of IP addresses. You can use your cloud API if you are using AWS, GCP, or Azure. They give you APIs from where you can fetch the list of your IP addresses. If you have a system or a hybrid system where you have a data center as well, you should contact your admins who can give you the list of IP addresses. Internet-wide scans, which is something pretty common these days. You can do the whole internet scanning using tools like ZMass, Zscan, using which you can have the whole attack surface of internet and saying that, okay, these are the subdomains, these are the IP addresses which exist, and port numbers which are open. So you can use those databases. You can also use ASNID, which is Autonomous Synchronization Number. It is assigned to an organization which has a huge range of IP addresses. You can also use who is reverse search, we will come to that, and reverse PDR records. Basically, you can generate a list of IP address and then do reverse pointer lookup on that, which will give you a list of domains, and then you can figure out if those assets are actually related to the organization or not. I have a small demonstration around this. So here we are doing a whois lookup. So first we have done dig on yandex.ru. Dig is basically the command for looking up DNS records for a specific domain or PDR records, using which we figured out that there's the IP address they have. That is, there are 4 IP addresses. We can pick any one of them. If we pick that IP address and then do a whois on that, and then we grab AS out of it, so we get the ASN ID, which is 13238 in this case. So we go further, and then, wait. I'm still new to Windows. Okay. I think. Yeah, so we got the ASN ID, which is 13238, and then we pass it to this command, in which we are doing a reverse whois. So we are identifying all the IP addresses which has ASN ID 13238, and then I have done some grep and unique and sort on top of it. So we just have a list of IP addresses. If we run that, these are the list of IP addresses which are assigned to this organization, which is Yandex. Now, of course, in case of the organization which are using a cloud platform, you will get ASN ID of those cloud platforms like GCP or AWS, which will not be relevant, of course. But if you are talking about bigger organization, this is one of the way to find out their IP addresses, especially when you are interested in bug bounties, doing bug bounty for big organizations. Okay, going back to slide. The other thing which we use is Project Sonar. Well, Project Sonar is a project which is being carried on by Rapid7 and MIT University, in which they do internet-wide scans, not only the domain name records, but also port scans, and they release the results free of cost every week. We'll have a demo around it, but this is to summarize what kind of data you can get. You can get forward DNS records of A records, AAA records, CNAME records, TXT records, SOA records. Now, obviously, these databases are huge. They can range from 17 gigabytes to 300 gigabytes. Well, I have uploaded them on Google BigQuery and then doing search on top of it. But if you want, you can have your own systems. The place you can download these datasets is scans.io. You can also find out domains registered on top of an email address. I've used my own email address, which is quite funny, so don't laugh. Okay, I just said don't laugh. Anyway, so this is the email ID which I'm using, and all of these domains are actually, I bought on top of this email ID. So you can't just find out email address out of a domain. You can also find domains out of an email address. But there's a disclaimer: this is not reliable information, because after GDPR, whois is not a reliable source anymore. But you always have to try all your luck. Then you have to find your subdomains of the organization. And again, I'm still talking from a defensive perspective. It looks like I'm an attacker right now, but to defend your organization from attackers, you have to get into those shoes and do all the things which an attacker do. So you can use search engines. You can run queries like site:/abc.com. It will give you a lot of results, and then you can keep removing the subdomains you have already listed. You can again use internet-wide scans. You can use certificate transparency reports. You can use brute forcing. For example, if you have the subdomain example.com, you can try all the subdomains like a.example.com, b.example.com, and so on and so forth. You can also use reverse IP lookup. So we just had a look. We can find out IP addresses of an organization using ASN ID. So now we have a list of IP addresses which we can reverse look up, and it might actually give us some subdomains or domains for that organization. There are actually a lot of tools around subdomain enumeration. These two tools are my favorite. I use Sublister and AMAS because they have a lot of sources from which they fetch the list of subdomains. And I use AIO DNS Brute, which is a really good tool to brute force domain names. The only catch is it is a threat to network bandwidth, because it just sends so much of traffic. We will quickly have a demonstration around how you can find subdomains from Project Sonar. And I'm falling in the same problem again. All right. So this is the data set which I have uploaded, open data dset. This is the table which I have created, and then FDNS CNAME is the table where I have forward DNS records. If you look, this is just 11 gigabytes of data, and then the other one is reverse DNS, in which we have PTR records, and this is 80 gigabytes of data. Now I am running these queries. So first I'm checking anything.nokia.com. Now Nokia.com, because they have a bug bounty program, and also they have a lot of data, so it is a good example to showcase. So when I run it on Nokia.com, it gives me a huge list of subdomains which belong to them, as well as IP addresses which belong to them. So if you look at it, there are a bunch of subdomains which are coming, and if you look at the results, there are 4,000 results. So we can actually find out, of course, there could be duplicates in this, but a good number of chances that there are more than 3,000 subdomains here, as well as IP addresses. Similarly, we can run this on reverse data, on forward DNS. So when I run it on forward DNS, we have 595 domains. So these are just the CNAME records dataset. And again, we have so many domains like scl.developer.nokia.com, scportal.networks.nokia.com. Now, if you look at them, it is really difficult to brute force such domains because they are not just subdomains, they are sub-subdomains, right? And it is, this is the easiest way to find such subdomains. All right. So now we talk about cloud storage objects. So as a lot of companies store their data sets, their data in buckets, AWS buckets, Google Cloud buckets, blobs, spaces. A lot of times they store sensitive data, intentionally or unintentionally, because sometimes they store sensitive data and they think the bucket is actually not publicly available. And sometimes, they are just serving static sites like JavaScript and images, but by mistake they sometimes upload backup.tar files because human, And then if you can list those objects, you can download the whole backup.tar file, including config.php kind of files. I mean, examples, these are just examples. But how do you do that? So you can spider the websites. You can fetch the source code of every page. You can extract the name of the buckets or cloud storage objects based on the regex patterns. And then you can check for permissions. The other approach is you can create possible bucket names. For example, if the company name is example, you can have a common nomenclature of, you can generate patterns like example 01 prod, example stage, those kind of patterns. And based on that, you can brute force that. Just a screenshot of how this could be done. So I created a bunch of patterns for Carbon Console, which is a fake organization. Don't try it at home. And then, and then we are running a brute force against it using bucketfinder.rb. And then we can figure out one of the buckets which has some sensitive information. Going forward, apart from cloud storage objects, we talked about finding leaked credentials. So these credentials or leaked information could be passwords, API keys, third-party access tokens, DB credentials, internal domains, or a lot more, right? And where can you find all of this? On GitHub, on Bitbucket, Pastebin, .onion websites, etc. So one of the ways which I always do is, if I have a project, I figure out the name of the client, their GitHub repositories, and list all the repositories they have, and then check for any sensitive information being leaked in that. Because otherwise, any information which you get on GitHub, you have to verify whether it belongs to the organization or not, which you can, but it's a pretty lengthy process. The good way is you just find out the repositories of the organization and then go about it. You can also use Google custom search engine because Pastebin is not just one website where you have such anonymous pastes allowed. There are so many websites, including just.github.com, psbdump, pastry.org, and so many of them. So you can just compile a list of them and create a Google search engine on top of it. So you have one way you can search it. And also Google search engine allows you to have API, you can automate that because it gives you API keys. So you can actually include that in your automation suites. You can use automated tools, including GitHub and Trafalog. Trafalog is the one which I use. But here's a manual example which I was doing before I was creating this presentation. I had a quick search around the API keys or access keys which we can access. So I came across one access keys, which of course I have redacted. But when I checked it with a tool called Nimbus Stratus about identifying the privileges of that key, I figured out that this was an AWS root account, which basically means I can do anything on their AWS account in case they have billing setup. So this is one of the way you can do manual search. And then we have a small demonstration around truffle hog. So truffle hog is a small tool which takes input as a GitHub repository. When you pass it, it says, it basically downloads the source code of the repository as well as the commit histories, and then it uses regex patterns to figure out if there is anything sensitive in there. Now it has highlighted a bunch of things in this repository. It says there is a RSA private key which was updated. Someone created it, updated it, and deleted it. That basically means there could be some juicy information. Let's copy that commit hash, open this in browser, and you figure out that this is actually a private key of the person who has committed that and then realized that he has committed his private key, so he deleted that. Finding this obviously is possible manually, but when you have tons of repositories, it becomes a troublesome task. So it is good to have tools like this where you can just run a for loop or I don't know, some kind of automation to figure it out. All right. So next thing is social media monitoring. Now this is a very important aspect, not only in terms of your leaked information, but also in terms of your organization reputation. Now, for example, you are a security team in example.com and someone dropped a blog saying example.com hacked. Now, you really would like to get notified of such kind of blogs, such kind of posts or Twitter tweets which are going around. So you should really keep an eye on that, for which you can use streaming APIs, you can write your own scrapers. Also, you can use Google Alerts to have your organization name and any new result, when there is any new result coming for your organization, you should get an alert. Or you should have a page change detection. As soon as you realize that there is a change in one of your pages, you should get a notification. And this is how you can do some kind of monitoring. I wrote a tool called Tweet Monitor long back, which basically takes a keyword, and it keeps looking for that keyword. If someone tweets around that keyword, it sends you an email. And it also dumps this to Elasticsearch or any database of your choice. Now, once this is dumped on Elasticsearch, of course, apart from the tweet, there are a lot of attributes of the tweet, which includes the screen name, time, zones, etc., etc. They are dumped to Elasticsearch, on which you can draw your dashboards and figure out what are those users who are actually doing these kind of activities around your organization. It could be used for other purposes as well, but I have been using this for reputation checks. I have uploaded a video on YouTube, which are not included as a part of this presentation, but you can go to this link and have a look on that, how this could be done. Another thing which should be really looked out is analytics tags. So a lot of times we have administrators accounts which set up analytics for any of the domain, and then they set up analytics for multiple domains of the same organization. What they forget is that they are using the same analytics ID across all these domains or subdomains. So there could be confidential domains or subdomains which you don't want to leak out. But if you are using the same Google Analytics code or any other analytics code for that matter, this can leak out all the assets which are using the same ID, because they are using the same tag across multiple assets. So you can actually do reverse lookup on this. I'm using a tool called BuiltWith for that matter, in which if you open any website, it tells you all the tags being used. And then when you click on the tag, it allows you to search for all the other assets in the world. I mean, whatever they have crawled to, if they are using the same tags. These are a few of the things in terms of discovering your data. Now, once you have discovered all these kind of assets on a regular basis, of course, you should do periodic attack simulation. Now, what I mean by that is, you should classify the assets. You have identified that you have a bunch of IP addresses, subdomains, domains, cloud buckets, and of course, all of these categories have different kind of attack surface. So you should run custom scans. Now the examples could be, if you have a server which is running Nginx, you don't need to run a brute force or dictionary attack for URLs, for using all the URLs. You just need to find sensitive URLs for Nginx and check with them. Similarly, if someone is using SharePoint, you would like to check services.asmx files instead of checking config.php. So this way you can target your dictionary attacks when you are talking about a asset. Also, you can pass these assets to vulnerability scanners like Nessus, Nexpose, Burpsuit, or anything for that matter. And then you can review reports. Again, reviewing reports is a troublesome task, so you might like to do some kind of automation there. So you can set up some centralized dashboards of all these reports. Also, whenever you have a new release, new acquisition, new merger, or any event which basically means that there could be more number of assets coming in or going out, you should check for these new assets. And again, check for all the assets you have, check for vulnerability resurfacing, and run a complete cycle of these things which we just talked about. So apart from that, what are the countermeasures which you should do? Okay. So first thing is you should do everything on yourself before someone else use it against you. You should have OSINT awareness campaigns, especially for your employees, where you talk about not using same passwords across the multiple things, making sure when they upload pics from office space, they make sure they're not revealing some kind of password standing on their sticky notes on their desk, things like that. Also, you should consider implementing metadata stripping, especially when someone is sending some file on emails or uploading somewhere on the portals. There should be metadata strippers, so you strip all the metadata, which includes local paths, author names, softwares being used to develop those files. Those should be removed. You can also use collective intelligence framework, which basically collects information from threat intel feeds and checks if IP has some bad malicious rank, and then use it along with your SIEM integration. So you have an SIEM in which you are logging all the IP addresses, but apart from those IP addresses, you are also checking the rank of those IP addresses. Now, if there's an IP which is having a bad rank in malicious network, you can just check, if this IP is sending you any hits. And there's a new thing which I recently got to know about honey creds. Just like honey pots, you create some fake credentials and spread it across multiple platforms. Now, when a person uses this credential against you, you know that this credential does not exist, and it's a clear chance of someone trying to attack you. So you can simply block that IP address or that person for that matter. Now, one important thing here is you should always try to identify the root cause instead of fixing the issue. Now, I'll give you an example for that. There could be a case where your company is having a lot of new IP addresses coming every scan, right? And you must be wondering why these assets are coming. So instead of just getting rid of those assets, you should try to figure out which team is doing this. What is the problem? Why this team is doing? Was there the reason? Or the reason is lack of induction program, or the people are not aware of this, or people haven't attended any security trainings, things like that. So try to identify the root cause instead of just fixing the issue. I mean, you should always fix the issue, but you should always go about identifying the root cause as well. And whatever I just talked so far, it's not the ultimate way of achieving this thing. There are so many other things which cannot be covered in this duration of time. But the talk is just to give you an idea of what kind of attack surface is lying out there, and you should really focus upon it. This is how the process looks like if you want to understand this in a nutshell. Have a security team. If you don't have one, you should try making one. Maybe it can compromise of just one person, but there should be some security department in the organization. You should always keep implementing open source intelligence countermeasures, and then you should have a process of identifying assets, asset data sources, implementing asset discovery process, then periodic vulnerability checks and scanning on top of these assets. And once you have this data should be passed back to OSINT countermeasures, because now you have more insight of what kind of issues your organization is actually facing around these things. So you should pass it back to the phase where you are implementing countermeasures. So this is the kind of the process you can follow. Of course, not the exact process, not the Bible for this, but this is something we can use. So now you have done this. What is next for you? I have listed some resources. Again, there are so many resources in the internet, but these are some of my favorite ones. Awesome asset discovery list, in which this repository basically talks about all the resources which you can use for identifying assets, using assets, listing assets, kind of things. Awesome OSINT resources. This is a kind of a generic OSINT repository where you will find resources, not just asset discovery, but also in terms of investigations, cyber investigations, marketing, how you can use OSINT for those matters. This is one tool, Datasploit, which I wrote long back. This is kind of an open source intelligence framework which automates the process. If you pass a domain name, it will do a bunch of things for you in a customized manner. Handpicked weekly OSINT news. This is one chap who keeps writing about open source intelligence. So if you're interested in learning OSINT or picking OSINT, understanding OSINT, this is one source which you can relate to. This person publishes weekly news, whatever happens in the OSINT domain, this person published that. And then open data, which I talked about earlier in the presentation. This is the link where you can actually go and read more about the project, download the databases, etc. And that's it. So I'm up for question and answer. Please ask any questions if you have. Thank you.
If you have any questions for the speaker, please raise your hand.
Shiva here. Just wanted to be curious on your intelligence in dark web. How do you do, or how do you get any ideas or any thoughts?
So identifying information in that area is really difficult, but of course it is possible. There are a bunch of search engines for onion sites like Ahimia and onion.cab, .2 websites which allow you to search in that space. But it is always tricky because the kind of activities which happens there, they try to keep it very close, and they don't allow you to find more information about it. So it is difficult. I haven't seen a lot of automation around it, but manually it can be done.
Hello. So I have a different, there are many open source projects who tries to maintain their own infrastructure, and then something happens over the security labs and things. So what kind of suggestions do you have for those smaller projects with less number of people, kind of? Like, can they use these similar technologies or ideas to make sure their infrastructure is secure?
What kind of small projects are you talking? I didn't understand
Let's
that.
say where we have only 4 or 5 people and they manage to just spend money for one digital instance, or digital instance, or a couple of servers, someone is running their own lab. So can they use the similar ideas to make for themselves?
But I didn't understand the objective here.
I understand your talk. That's a very nice way of explaining things. I'm saying can a smaller group of people can use the similar ideas to identify issues for themselves?
Yeah, of course. I mean, open source intelligence, this is just one perspective of using open source intelligence for organizations, but it could be used for multiple ways. I mean, people use it for investigations as well. So the answer is yes, they can.
So you talked about assets. You listed out some other entries which are generally not part of the asset list.
Yeah.
Is that all, or is there any other thing that you think we should also be looking at as an asset?
I mean, as I said, it is not limited to those categories, and it will always be an evolving thing. As the industry will move forward, the kind of assets, the kind of things which will fall into that category will always keep evolving. So this list has always have to be updated.
Do we have any more questions before we end the session? Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you.
Check. So the last talk for the day, the security track, we have Shadab Siddiq from Hotstar on running a successful bug bounty program in your organization. The devil lies in the details.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. I think Shubham's talk sets a good pre-context for my talk on how to go about doing things. So today, the aim of this talk is to, guys, give you an idea how to have a successful bug bounty platform. And if you want to set up a bug bounty program for your organization, how do you go about it? What all it takes to run a successful bounty program, right? So let's get kick-started. So first thing about me, I'm currently head of security, privacy, and trust at Hotstar. Before this, I was with Ola. Before that, Flipkart, Adobe. What I love to do is solve security at scale. That's one of the fun thing that I love to do, right? Why am I talking about bug bounties? Is because long time ago, I wouldn't say a bug bounty hunter, I would say a security researchers who used to do sort of bug hunting when there wasn't a bug bounty program such. And I've done quite a few then. From then onwards, I moved from that side of the table to this side of the table, where 4 years back, I launched a successful bug bounty platform for an organization that I used to work with, right? And I'll take you through the journey of how things happen and what all it took to do that, right? So before starting, let's have a quick glimpse of what's a bug bounty program, right? I think this picture depicts it clearly, what's a bug bounty program, right? Like, it's shake up a tree to get some money out of it. And harder you shake, the more money you get, right? To summarize in points, it's like, it's a platform where you receive recognition, reward, bounties for submitting vulnerabilities, right? Why it is such a thing now? Because bug bounty hunters or white hat hackers get paid around roughly 2.5 times, 2.7 times more than an average software engineer. And in India, it's way different. It's like it can go up to 16 times, right? That's why it's a big thing now, right? Why do we need a bug bounty program, right? Well, according to a recent research, or probably it's IBM or Sophos, I'm not too sure, where they said cyber criminals have said for them to breach any network, it takes 10 hours, right? If we have to make sure our organizations, our infrastructure is secured, we have to work the way they do, like something the previous talker explained a lot, right? Now, that's why we need the support for the whole bug bounty or white hat hacker community together to make it work. But this is important. Bug bounty is towards the last thing I want to do. It's not the first thing. It's not the fundamental thing. It's the process to identify bugs that have slipped through the cracks, okay? And that's why you deploy a bug bounty program, not a replacement for your security team. That's really important. Some history about bug bounty. What I recently got to know, the first bug bounty came in 1983 with Hunters and Redding Corporation. Then Netscape Navigator 2 launched one in 95, to Mozilla, Pontoon, Google, Facebook, to now all the telecom operators have it, payment companies have it, all the governments have it, hotels have it, adult websites have it, right? And it goes from, like, it has gone from this to finding bugs here and getting this as a gift as well, right? And that's how it transitioned in last probably 2.5 decades. Today's agenda is going to be understanding what are the use cases for you to consider to launch or not to launch, or to have or not to have a bug bounty program for your organization. What's the parameter you should think on? What are fears, concerns having a bug bounty program? What things that you run into you haven't thought through while having a bug bounty program? Understanding who does it apply to, right? Here we have organization from 10 people startup to a big, like 1,000, 10,000 people corporations. Does it apply to all? Or what's the thumb rule to understand who does it apply to? Dark side of not having one, right? If I don't have one, what are the bad or the worst thing that can happen to me? How to launch your own bug bounty program, where things, essentials before setting up, launching one. What are the logistics you have to take care? how do you make sure you run a successful one, right? Couple of pitfalls while you're running and how to avoid them, and some yarn from my side, right? Okay. Now, before I give you all that theory of what's needed, what's not needed, I want to give you a quick walkthrough of how I did it 4 years back at Ola, right? Now, when I launched at Ola, it was just 2 of us, me including, in the security team, and we're doing so many things, and we thought of launching a program. We had our own things done, which I'll walk you through. And when we decided we wanted, like ideally, probably some of you have interacted with the bug bounty platform or commercial one. So it's like you submit something by a form, someone sends you an email, then there's interaction happening over email, all of it, right? My aim was, it's 2-people team. If I get 10 bugs in a week, I cannot manage that because I have to do a lot more work. How do I go about automating all of that stuff? The aim was, like, can I have click buttons where I just click and everything happens? Like, it sounds a bit fancy, but we did achieve to a good level in terms of how do we go about doing it. So that was my aim. Now, doing that, so that's where I wanted to. And post that, what I wanted to have is all the things that would be coming in, how I would be counteracting with them, right? So this was aim of how should a bug bounty platform I should build, right? And I'll also talk about why not use a commercial one in slightly couple of slides later, all right? So ideally, as I said, like there's a communication channel and everything follows. For me, if it's an email, then it becomes a hard thing. Hey, have I replied to those researchers? Have I fixed those bugs? It's hard to follow up all of those things, right? So what we did is I have video and I have images of these videos to explain to you how I did it. So just to tell you, again, the vision was, can I have things at a click of a button, and how do I explore with minimum hard work put in place with maximum automation to do all of it, right? So it works something like this, like you go ahead, fill a form on a page, and you submit, right? Okay? You submit the bug. It's all received. Now, ideally, it goes to an email account that we had, okay? Now, the point was, I cannot monitor email accounts, so we need some kind of automation. We, at that point in time, using a ticketing system called Jira, and we went ahead exploring how we could abuse and exploit Jira in a good way to automate all of it, right? Probably workflows and things that I'll show you here, you haven't seen, you would have thought Jira exists that way, but it does. And probably after 20 days of exploration, we did a lot of stuff. I'll first show you what it works. All right, 1 second. Okay, let me pause it here. So what happens is the moment you submit a bug, it goes to an email, and we wrote a Jira handler to monitor that email, and then it comes to Jira. The moment it comes to Jira, okay, let me put it this way. It keeps moving. Okay, we had, let's say, some artificial intelligence to understand the criticality of the bug, so we can monitor on which are critical bugs that needs to be looked at, because if I'm getting 100 bugs, I need to first focus on the critical P0 bugs, right? Then it gets a lot of details. It has a secret key where we created this to understand each bug and how do we measure and monitor each bug, and that we're talking to the same person who has submitted X bug, but for that particular bug, right? All of those things comes in an email, right? Now, if you have interacted with Jira, you know there are workflows that are defined where you have buttons to do things, right? So now, when this happens, we wrote a Jira post trigger which sends an automatic email the moment it receives a Jira ticket to the customer, to the third-party researcher, saying that, hey, we have received your bug, this is your identifier to use further, and give us some time to validate this bug. This is all automatic, no one's doing. The moment, I'll show you how it's done. And, okay, now, as I said, right, we had few things done. A bug could be valid, invalid, I'm not able to reproduce, duplicate, won't fix, out of scope. Email is an option that we had, how we can interact with the third-party researcher or the bug bounty hunter in terms of over the communication. So, and the whole security team needs to just work on this Jira, where everything they say goes as a comment. every reply that customer says comes as a comment. So everything is tracked here, and we just click buttons, hey, it's valid, it's not, right? So I'll show an example of send email where if I have to talk with customer saying that, talking with the researcher saying, hey, can you help us with some more details or hold on for so long? So you understand, we just, the security team just says, thanks for submitting, nothing else, right? What happens at the back end, it's all post things and triggers that we wrote. Let it refresh. The Jira adds a couple of headers, footers, signatures, the key, all of it, right? We could write anything that we want to. So if you have seen commercial platform, that's like timeline that goes through where you interact with the researcher, we do it via Jira because we can do it, the whole organization is used to use Jira, right? Now, let's mark a bug valid. Okay, go ahead, mark valid. Okay. The moment you mark it valid, the flow changes to, okay, fix in progress. Researcher gets, again, an automated email that, hey, you know what? You have spotted a valid bug. While you evaluate, here are things that you need to look for while we are working on it, right? Now, then it goes through a fix in progress where engineering team fixes it. They mark it fixed. Then it goes to QA team. They mark it QA done, no regressions. Then it goes to security team. They say, hey, you know what? There is no security bypass. Then they mark, hey, verify from the security researcher itself. And it issues an email to the security researchers that we have deployed a fix. How about you go and see if there are bypasses or the fix is good enough, right? We have fixed it. How about you just verify it's good enough or not, right? So security team is just clicking buttons, ideally, doing nothing, right? This is another awesome thing, right? So the moment we want to close a bug, obviously it's a valid bug, we have to figure out how much do we have to pay out to the researcher. So we created another Jira project payout, which only security team and the finance team had access to. What we said, it's an all automated way. The moment I click on close, it creates a new ticket where we can just enter the amount. I'll just show you. And another email will go to researchers saying, hey, we are awarding you this much amount. How about it? And then the finance team can close the loop. So this is a test, payout. We enter the amount. It's a test. And we close. OK? Now, what you see here, it goes down. So a new, it's not coming in. OK. For some reason, the below thing is getting disconnected. OK, so as a payout ticket was getting created, which is not visible here. And if I refresh my Gmail account, the researcher refreshes his Gmail account, a new email gets triggered to him, asking him about, again, tons of things in terms of, hey, here is something that we are paying you out, here are the details and everything, right? So this was the front end of how security team has automated everything, and so at Jira you could just create dashboards so I know how many bugs are open, in which state, how many critical bugs are there, how long are we taking to fix critical bugs, all of it together, right? And here's something. Okay, here is something that I'll show you how we abuse Jira in a good way. This would be probably the most mess up the workflow of Jira that you have seen. Would be something like this. So, right, I cannot tell you, like, after I was done with this, I started even, when we wanted to hire a Jira admin, I started interviewing Jira admins because I knew so much about Jira, thing that it had was really, I didn't know that Jira could do so much, right? How we created bug handlers, post triggers, pre-triggers, triggers to itself, right? So, yeah. So now let's see the workflow that I was talking about, right? So what happens is, if any one of you have used Jira or any ticketing system, you know from, you have like 4 or 5 states on how things flow, right? Here what we had is something really hard. Like just opening an issue sends an email. It can go to X states. I'll just I have images, but just a quick find through of how things could be done. Like how much effort went in just designing this, because it becomes like, hey, if this effort we haven't put in, we wouldn't be able to automate the thing that you saw on the front end of the Jira. This is all that went in doing all of it, right? Reopening, I'll talk about reopening and how after closing, it creates a new ticket for payout, right? That's how it does. And it's a bit messy up, right? So if I have to just, so as I was showing you, right? Oh, there's something happening. So we had post function. We wrote all of that, right? So it's as simple as we went ahead, created a post function, posted a Groovy script of whatever we wanted to do, whether fetching an email from account handler, how to push it, and all of that was done at Jira. This was a one-time activity that we did. Okay, 1 second. This was a one-time activity that we did, which gave us enough bandwidth to manage things. For now, as a security or the triage team, we just had to click buttons and it goes to the right people, whether finance team, engineering team, QA team, or security team, or the researcher for that matter. So this is something which we did. Okay, what happens, I'll just walk you through, is, as I said, right, whether the priority comes in by default, we wrote a post function for that. So Jira, this key that you see here is created by Jira itself, nothing else, because form submission comes to an email, then to Jira, right? Everything is done at Jira end itself, right? Now, after this researcher receives that email, from an open state, it can go to either of those 5 states that you see: out of scope, won't fix, invalid, duplicate, valid, right? Now, the moment we mark anything, it sends an email, as I showed you. Now, just telling you, right, all the arrows that you see, these are triggers in itself, like close has 3-4 triggers. This is something, while designing, probably I took around just one week to 10 days to design this workflow, because if I launch bug bounty without having this workflow, it's going to be manually managing all, because I have to figure out what state it goes to and what all it can happen, right? So from fix in progress to fix, there were so many things that needs to be happening at the same time that we have to design and prepare for. So the point is, how much effort went in as a one-time to automate all of it, right? The moment we have fix in progress, again, it goes to QA state, where a QA can mark it. So everyone was involved. The whole organization knew about this, that we were launching this. We had things like, I'll walk you through the theory of how did we prepare for all of it, is everyone was aware we had proper SLA in place and completely automated. So this is where an email goes to third-party researcher to validate that we have verify the fix that we have deployed to the bug, right? That's where he replies yes, no, and see, the close itself can happen from so many places and so many things that needs to happen at the close state. It has to create a payout ticket, all of that, right? Told you could have for payout, for sometimes you want to just pay out goodies. We need to have an option for that. Amount that we have to pay out, it comes in. And the payout email that goes, so we need to have a bunch of these information, right? Whether we have to send goodies to you, you want Hall of Fame or not. This is a different identifier from the bug you have submitted, because this goes as a payout ticket. And this is something that finance team keeps a track of things, right? That's it. Now, this was how we automated all of it, right? But before even we went to the stage, there was a lot of back-end things that went in, where we had to prepare everyone for the bug bounty itself, right? Where should we have it, should we not have it? All of the agendas that I talked about would be here, right? Cool. Consideration for the bug bounty program. So here the problem is, few companies launch a bug bounty program for the right reason, few do it for not so the right reason, right? some examples of some reasons where if we're launching bug bounty for this purpose, wouldn't be a good idea, right? You think crowdsourcing security is a good alternative to have as a replacement for a security team. Bad idea. You'll only pay out for the bugs people find. Now, you don't have to pay a full-time researcher. You just pay out for the bugs anyone finds. So if you think having a team to exploit your system before you have enough security in place, think about it, right? Because bug bounty hunters are people who want to exploit system. Like the last talk, you saw how we can go about and exploiting, where people pay enough money just for something that was committed to GitHub, right? You think, hey, you know what? This is a nice way of getting assessment of an application done. To avoid bad PR situations, because there has been a case probably a year, 2 years back where a food tech startup was forced to have a bug bounty program because the way they didn't have it, and some researcher went ahead, wrote publicly, and they were in a situation, now we need to have one, right? You don't want to be in a situation that, and you start having bug bounty program, bad idea. You think, hey, you know, like instead of having 2 people doing all of it, let's have like 100 people, 1,000 people doing it. Nope. The reason you should be thinking of, plus this reason, is a good idea, right? The first thing is to understand attackers' approach. Like when a bug bounty hunters or white hat hackers test your system, you understand from what all things people are looking at your apps, from what all different perspectives they are looking at your apps, right? You want to have an open connect with the security community. The point of security community is not, hey, I'll pay you, just do it. It's all about how you build a rapport with them to make sure they help you and how would you help them, apart from bug bounty itself. You should understand, if you have baked in security and a security team, you want to understand the resilience and the robustness of those baked in security mechanisms that you have. You could get a variety of outputs over a longer period of time, because as people at the security team tends to have a bias because they know this application or services are good enough always, so they tend to have biases. That's where a bug bounty hunter can help you if things have slipped through the cracks. How to go about building a detection prevention system. So this again is a very good point where you want to understand what kind of people will attack you so you can build a robust detection and monitoring system, right? Eliminating bias, understanding your attack surface area. But again, bug bounty is not a replacement for your penetration testing team. It's just an additional step to understand the things that have fallen through the cracks, right? Now, what's a fear of a bug bounty program, right? This image depicts clearly what's the problem with the bug bounty program, whether it's a real bug or it's a fake bug, right? For me to identify it and I'm scared of it, it's going to be a problem, right? So the biggest problem organization having thinking of a bug bounty program is, can I trust these people? I don't know them. I don't have an NDA with them. I don't know how would they go about. So can I trust them, right? It becomes too risky because I get for an organization point of view, because if I say I have a bug bounty program, it puts too much attention to me. Now, people who probably till yesterday didn't care about me want to get easy money out, and I become the center of attention. Do I want to be? It becomes a bit risky, a gray area. Like, will I get bombarded with vulnerabilities? Like, how would I handle the scale of issues that would come in, right? I have a quick stats to answer you this. Does it give license to people to exploit our apps, right? I don't want people to exploit our apps. As a CEO of a company, I wouldn't want that ever, right? Having a bug bounty program doesn't define anything where it's wrong, it's right, right? Can I have a PR incident? Like the example I can talk about here is, I have an image later where someone submitted a bug to Facebook. The team said it's not a valid bug. As a proof of concept, he went ahead, posted. The vulnerability was he can post on anyone's wall. And the guy went ahead and posted on Mark Zuckerberg's wall. Now, if that happens, do you think whoever is responsible for security and Mark calls him, how would he respond, right? It's hard to manage, right? The last example that I gave to you. Some may have opinion. It gives it's a rewarding behavior for having, rewarding a bad behavior itself. Yes and no, right? Like you're saying, I'm gonna give you money if you find a bug to my app. It helps you, but it does reward you rewarding a bad behavior, right? So, okay, I'll just move around. So this is a stats from Hackers Trophy where they talk about valid issues. So what they say on Hackers Trophy, you get out of 100, 23.3% are valid bugs out of 100 submitted bugs. 2 at Facebook, out of 100 submitted bugs, only 4 bugs are valid. The rest are invalid. Now, all of them, so 3 are commercial platform to manage bug bounties, 2 have their own bug bounty programs, right? Now think for those 2 companies where it's 5% and 4%. The rest bugs are invalid. Like if they have automation, someone is clicking invalid for like 96, 97 bugs, correct? So how should I have it or not, right? So pointers of now, we talked about what are the actual use cases to have a bug bounty program, what are fears and concerns of having one, right? Now let's talk about how do I identify should I have a bug bounty program as an organization or not? Because I could be a payment company, I'm already compliant with RBI, PCI DSS, XYZ, right? I'm all good. Why do I need to have one, right? I'm a CRM or a ticket management startup, right? I know the person who's submitting via an email ticket, and I have a team inside who manages all those tickets. I know those 2 people. Do I need one, right? E-commerce aggregation, right? It's like if I have to ship a product to an e-commerce, I know his email, phone, address. What's the exploit that could happen? The same goes with cab aggregation, right? The customer is going to onboard my cab. I know his pickup address, drop address. Why do I need a bug bounty program? Non-IT companies, HR, finance, supply chain, do they need one? Content website where there's user-generated contents. It's like, hey, I don't care about anything. People can post anything, and that's it, right? Communication platform like Slack or anything where 2 people talking to each other, they know each other, right? I'm talking to, let's say, Kiran here. I know I'm talking to Kiran, and Kiran knows he's talking to Sharab. How can a bug bounty program adds a value for those organizations, right? Online registry like NPM Dockers, like DevOps conference. You think like it's all trusted, signed, everything is there. We know what happened with Docker a few months back. We know what happened with NPM a year or so back, right? Now, how do I define there's a thumb rule to understand is my organization eligible to have a bug bounty program, or what's the timeline for an organization to have one, right? The point is bug bounty program, as I said, is a good to have feature provided you have a security team, right? Whether you are a 20 people startup, whether you are a startup which has just interacted or has API integration with all the other apps, the point is if you have enough decent security in place, you can live without bug bounty program. It's always a good to have thing, but security is a must have thing, right? Security evangelization. So understand, security is all about exploiting and exploring the nuances. As a logical statement, payment companies are all good. Docker registries are all good, right? A security guy goes ahead and exploits the nuances, which becomes a problem. As a company, payments are all set up, sorted, right? Dark side of not having one, right? Let's say, hey, now I think probably whatever category I fall into, I don't think I need a security bug bounty program, right? Well, if you don't have one, so I have presented here 2 points of view from researcher's point of view and from organization point of view. From researcher point of view, see, whether you have, whether you don't have, researchers won't stop poking hole around in your website or app, right? You can't stop that. You cannot say, hey, I don't run, why are you wasting your time and asking me to pay you for the bug that you have found? That's a valid statement, but they are there, it's internet, everyone can do what they want, right? From a researcher point of view, it comes to like, hey, they found something, they're not able to contact the right person in the company. And it's a critical bug, it's getting ignored, it's not getting fixed. So they think because it's a critical bug, the right way to go about it is writing publicly about it, right? Versus for an organization, it's like, hey, writing a full disclosure becomes a problem, right? I don't want people to write about what kind of bugs people found on my application, right? Bombarded with simple issues, people threatening and bug bounty hunters, your logs got lit up, believe me. Like, people are going to run all kind of scanners to do all of that. Okay, you can't close high critical bugs in a timeline, right? In a few days, you cannot do. How would outside world react to that? Hackers disclose vulnerability or they sell on the dark web. So you think, hey, not having one is better because I don't know if they sell it outside, right? How to go about launching one? So we have talked about consideration, we have talked about fear and concerns, who does it apply to, and the dark side of not having one. To launch one, I'll just quickly rush through because I have just 10 minutes left. So you have seen a demo of how it looks like the automated way, but a lot more goes in without that as well, right? The first thing is the ingredient itself. Like, you need to have a platform, you have to engage researchers, you have to set up the workflows, how would you triage, all of that, and how would you pay, right? So that's a 50,000 feet view of what needs to be there in a bug bounty program. If I funnel it down for you, a 30,000 feet view is where you want everything operated. Who doesn't want to be a rich where everything happens all by itself? To do that, to build that kind of an automation, what you need is a communication channel, a ticketing system, well-communicated SLA, because engineering team do not have understanding of how critical the bug is. And you have to get, depending on the RC or the remote code or the command execution, you want to get it in few hours fixed. So this has to be set up with your engineering team as well. No one should have access to your bug bounty tickets as well apart from the security team. What's the workflow? The thing that I showed you, I know I'm a bit rushing through. You can catch me offline, but I just want to give you an idea and cover the whole set of slides. So workflow, what you need to have. So what I showed you is one way to have it, not the best way or not the right way. That works for me, may not work for you, right? How would you set up things with payments team? Logistics for bug bounty, buy-ins from legal PR team, measurement of KPIs, how successful is your program, right? Evangelization. So the biggest thing is, before launching one, you want to go, if you're responsible for security in your team, you want to go to leadership, hey, we want to launch a bug bounty program. Now, these are things they are concerned about. You should have answer to these things before reaching out to them, okay? So this image depicts what their concern is. How would we handle all the attention? What if people, instead of reporting, exploit vulnerabilities? Is it good to ask people to exploit a system? Like, think of this, instead of your DevOps shoes, think from a CEO perspective. Would you want that? That's the leadership problem they have, and you have to make them comfortable before launching one, right? Repercussions, if you can't patch things within a defined SLA. Do we need a formal one, or if someone submits, we'll pay them out? This becomes a problem because if you have bug bounty program, you have defined out of scope, in scope vulnerabilities. If you don't have one, they can do whatever you want, and you're going to be in a bad shape, right? Why can't we do with third-party security testing companies? Does it put a target on my back, right? If you could give your leadership team confidence on these things, they can help you to understand how does they value infosec importance in the organization, and with the budget, obviously, right? Finance team, India specific. Okay, finance teams work in a very standard way. It's been there for last, I don't know, couple of decades. They work for everything. They have to give money out. They need a PO, invoice, or anything. Now you're saying, hey, you have to give a guy who we don't know, we cannot identify his validity, couple of thousands of rupees, right? Good luck setting up with that, right? How would you validate researchers? If I have given him money, how do we get a receiving thing from a researcher that they have received and they are the right person to receive? Like, this is a typical finance mindset. You have to convince them to have bug bounty program too, right? How do you verify the person who submitted the bug and who's sent his account details are the same person? Do you pay in dollar or INR, depending how many countries do you work in, right? You need PAN card details. Where will you store the PAN card details? Tax deduction, budget utilization. So it's like, for finance team, these two images depicts what they worry about, what their concern is, and how do you help them to fix these things that, hey, you know what, I've taken care, I can catch hold of this rat and that dog, right? Security team, preparation is really important, right? I'll quickly rush through. So the point here, I'm trying to say, before launching one, you should have fixed all the known bugs. If you haven't, you should have planned on how to handle the PR incident that can happen for a non-fixed bug, right? You need to have an awesome monitoring in place. That image depicts clearly. You don't know what can go wrong. The point is how you can plan things, not prevent. Detect things and plan things that if they go wrong, you'll get to know. Okay? Automate things as much as possible. Legal PR team. So again, the image that I talked about, someone wrote on Zuckerberg's wall saying, hey, your team is not able to understand this security issue, and here's a proof. This is important because this protects your company in a really good manner. Whether you need to have a cybersecurity insurance, yes, that's a thing now. And how would you handle PR incidents, right? Logistic issues. Now, we launch bug bounty program, but your concierge service or your admin team cannot be sending 20 goodies every week. You need to have planned that, set up that process completely, right? Just rewind, you got a leadership buy-in, you got budget approvals, you got finance team to fund your things. You have sign off from legal PR team. If things go south, how would you handle? You have taken care of logistics, rules, scope, the security team has taken care of. You have an automated platform to take care of things. Now the question is like, fine, the demo was good, but after this whole theory, it becomes too much. Like, why do I need to manage? Like, I can go with the like all those commercial platforms, right? My answer to that is, why not, right? It's a one-time thing where you do invest as a one-time activity, okay? Now after I tell you, it's going to be a week effort if you want to do it, right? I took around 20 days because I was exploring Jira itself. Versus a commercial platform where it's a turnkey solution, you get out-of-the-box reporting, but you got to pay a platform fee. For every bounty that you pay, you have to give a cut of 20-25% to the fee, to the platform, all of that, right? So if I have to summarize, I'll say it's like, do I want that? Damn yes, okay? But having that, can I maintain it? Question for you to ask. If you could maintain it, go ahead, non-stopping. Versus, should I buy a Model Tesla 3 for $50,000 versus that? A bit of exaggeration, but I hope you're trying to get the point, right? I'll skip through this. I have do's and do nots where I'll just say two things. You need to have your scoping done properly. What's in scope, what's not in scope. Else you're going to have an awesome time. And in a bad way, okay? You need to have awesome monitoring in place for everything, right? Do not have your WAF enabled on bug bounty pages because people will be submitting payloads which are attack vectors, and WAF going to block all of it. So plan around that, right? Don't expect people to read your policies, understand how should they go about it. They're going to go all berserk. You have to figure out on how you're going to handle all of that, right? To summarize, if you have a security team like this, or you don't have one, because it's as good as not having one, you're going to end up doing that in a bug bounty platform. It's just going to be burning your company's money, right? Notes, I'll just say, prepare well. Bug bounty, understand the importance of bug bounty. It's not cost effective for penetration testing. If you think of hiring a bug bounty program, understand properly what your hiring strategy is. Like at first it looks good, but it's a gray area. I won't say yes to hire or no, not to hire. You have to plan. I can give you inputs on what to do, what not to do later. And it does requires effort, technically, financially, human resources, whether you have commercial or this. Because if you have a platform, you're going to say valid bug, not valid bug, respond to him. That's what you're going to do regardless you build or you buy, right? So it takes investment, and are you ready for that investment? Not financially, right? That's all I had. I'm up for question. Hope I'm in time. Thank you. Any questions? Sure.
So say for like a regular sized startup in any sector, would you recommend that they go with a third-party bug bounty platform, or would you, like, in which place would you recommend that they make their own?
So as I said, right, this slides the pic. So if you could afford that, yes. If you think as a one-time investment, you need to figure out on how to automate. Let's say if in your organization you don't have Jira, you need to find a way of how to do what I've done, right? If that's too much, yes, you can go ahead. So I'm not saying the needle moves, this is better, that's better. That depends, your size, the time you have, how fast you want to go to the market, what's your budget. So, yeah. Sure.
Hi. At the start, you mentioned that you received a lot of issues, and somehow you managed to categorize those issues.
Yes.
How did you manage to do it at the start of it?
Sure. So just to give you guys an idea, the start of the program, when you say, hey, you know what, I'm launching a bug bounty program, I'm going to pay you out this much, there's going to be a flood of bugs that are going to coming in, valid, invalid, all of it, right? The point was, if someone is submitting, hey, you have trace option enabled, or option enabled, or your Apache version, this is visible, you don't care about that. Versus someone is saying, I found an XSS, SQLi, remote code execution, all of that, right? Now, so that's what we did in automation in Jira. Hey, if these lies in these kind of categories, let's put them as P4. I may look at them because I've defined an SLA. P4, I'll look in, let's say, in a week's time. P0, I'll look in few hours, few minutes. P1, I'll look in a couple of hours or a day's time. Okay, so how do I handle is we did categorize in terms of how do we filter out those bugs and put them as a priority as P4. So not a problem to look at right now. So that was our logic of saying, hey, these bugs I don't look at, and Jira puts them at P4, so we don't look at them. So the way it used to work with us is when we open a Jira dashboard, we have P1, P2, P3, P4 with aging, when it came in, all of that, right? What our focus was P1, P2, and P3, right? This is something I can look. Now, that's how I did, right? I'm not saying that's the only way. You could go about doing all the way you want to. Yes. So all this automation that we did because we had Jira, so either I had to build something or I explore Jira, right? So I said, let me explore how can I exploit Jira in a good way. I found all the things that I could do in the tool that I built or anything that any commercial platform has where you have a timeline, comment section, sending response, assigning it to people. All of that existed with Jira. But for a general person, Jira is just a ticketing system. We thought, let me explore how can we do it. So all automation that you saw, we did it in Jira itself. Yep, you had a question, right?
So, for example, if there is a red team,
Okay.
So the responsibilities which they will have, so is there any difference between the responsibilities between the in the red team as well as in the bug bounter?
Yes, there is. See, as a point, red team does act as like a bug bounty hunters, but they know they don't want to flood your system, right? They want to go ahead and see how far they can go to exploit system, right? Being undetected. But they just don't want to say run Arcunetics like tons of scanners and flood you to see what works, what doesn't work, right? They have an understanding of what methodology to follow to go about exploiting system. Bug bounty hunters, because it's a thing now, people run scanners, people run so many things, they see, okay, in one platform, someone got rewarded. So like last talk showed you, right? A key put up in GitHub, one of the companies paid $7,000. The other company paid $15,000. Now, would a red team do it? Probably not, but it's something you should have monitoring in place regardless, right? Bug bounty hunters is like, okay, you know what, I found something, pay me. So the idea of what red team does versus what the mindset of a bug bounty hunter is different. They just want money. The easy, simple bug which can make them earn money is something they look for. While red team is like, how can I sophisticate my attack, go ahead and exploit system.
Okay, thank you.
In your experience, has an employee or ex-employee ever abused the system?
Sorry, come again?
In your experience, has an employee or an ex-employee ever abused the system? Like they know the vulnerabilities and then...
People do it all the time.
Have you been able to catch those kind of issues?
Yep. So that's what I'm saying. The point of while you do it for this or you do it for something else, right? How do you build an awesome detection system? Okay, because what you don't know, you don't know. The point is, hey, I'll just give you an example. You say ki one of the talks that was today, right, talking about login OTP, right? Now the point is, ideally, no one can exploit my OTP, right? Or no one can log in via my OTP, bypassing an OTP flow, logically, right? That's why I said like, security is all about exploiting the nuances. Now, if someone has a valid OTP in your DB and is still logged in, has a session, that's a problem, right? But you'll say logically that's not possible, I agree, but security is all about exploiting that. Now, can you put an alert around that? Ideally, you shouldn't get those alerts. You're putting alerts like, hey, this won't go wrong, definitely. But put up an alert, ki if it ever goes wrong, how do I detect it? Can someone sign up with invalid phone numbers? No, because they have to fill an OTP. But if you find someone signing up with less than 10 digits in India, let's say, send it up an alert. You should. The point is, how awesome detection system can you build to catch all of this? If you don't, you're like, hey, my security team would do it, my bug bounty hunters would do it. That's a wrong mindset itself. Any other question? Cool. Thanks.
Check. So we have feedback forms at the registration desk. So if you could take some time to fill those up for all the talks that we've had today, it will be really helpful for us. Tomorrow we'll start check-in at 9 o'clock. Please make sure you bring your badges. There'll be no registration tomorrow. Just still scan your badges, and we'll start tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning. Thanks, and have a nice evening.